Welcome aboard, everyone, to Betting Weekly Live. It is Wednesday, the 21st of May. You're with Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Welcome it in to all. And we've got a mega day ahead of us. Betting Weekly Live today, we're going to be discussing the Europa League final. We've got the Ligue playoff relegation battle, a smidgen of Norwegian Cup action, and then later on, at 2:30 Eastern time, we've got a live betcast for the Europa League final. Nigel's going to join the show. So, James, we've been doing these Europa League shows all season together, and this is the conclusion. This is the finale. Yeah. How are you feeling?
I'm really excited, Steve. It's a massive game for so many reasons, right? Two big clubs, but had poor seasons. That's a talking point. Two clubs from the same country. It's been quite a journey to get here. You're right. If you think back to those cold, dark days of a UK autumn where we were covering the group stages, we didn't know who was going to get here. So it's fantastic to still be on the show with you, Steve, and covering what is, in my view, don't know what everybody out there in the chat thinks, but in my view, going to be an absolutely fantastic and fascinating final.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fascinating final. I'm not necessarily sure it's going to be a fantastic final. But before we talk Europa League, I've actually got to congratulate you, not just on your performance on Betting Weekly Extra Time this year, but the newsletter pick that you gave out. Ousmane Dembele, top goal scorer at 12-1. I'm sure around that time I would have expressed my doubts. I can't remember exactly, but that was it was a brilliant weekend for the newsletter picks in general. My Marseille pick cashed as well, but yours was at 12-1. There was a lot of people mentioning you in the comments the last few days on that, and well done, great pick, great spot at the time that you'd moved.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Steve. Yeah. Really appreciate that. Yeah, it was back in I think it was that lost period between Christmas and New Year, where you're not quite sure what day of the week it is. And he did just look too big to me at the time. For people who maybe didn't see it, I put up Ousmane Dembele to be the League One top scorer. So what's that, five months ago? He was 12-1 at the time, plus 1,200. And it was a couple of things. The first thing was he was only 3 goals behind the leading scorer at the time anyway, in Jonathan David. The second thing was I did get an inkling that Luis Enrique, the PSG manager, liked him as a centre forward. We'd only just seen the first signs back then of what has now become a real trend at PSG of Dembele playing centre forward. So that obviously has been the big factor. They moved him into that number 9 position and he scored sackfuls of goals. So yeah, much appreciated. But the broader point you make, Steve, is correct as well. There were some amazing success stories on the newsletter over the weekend. So it's not just the long-term ones. Some of the short-term plays were great. Obviously, your Marseille pick was shorter odds, but that's another relatively long-term play, which we've been putting up as the weeks have gone by. So it's going very well at the moment.
Yeah, congrats on that. And congrats yesterday to two massive winners on the sportsbook in the basketball, Thunder Moneyline and Thunder minus 4.5 against the Timberwolves. Nearly a combined $45,000 on those plays. On the soccer yesterday, not such a good outcome, sadly. Under 2.5 goals live in Man City Bournemouth. That was a $10,000 loser. And people betting on the under goals in the Crystal Palace game as well, which surprises me. We actually gave out goals, I think, on Jack Wright had a hot dog winner with the goals. Nigel was mentioning the goals. But over 10,000 was lost on backing under 2.5 goals live, under 4.5 goals live there. And but there was a $5,000 winner on Wolves on the money line. You wouldn't get me going near under goals towards the end of the season really too often. Yeah. So I'm guessing that wasn't your money, James.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I'm a big believer in goals at the end of the season, certainly on our show, Steve, on the weekly European show. And we saw it in France, didn't we? On the final day, I think there were 8 out of 9 games went over 2.5 goals. So I tend to agree with you. Listen, I'm not against people going against the trend, but going against the over goals is not for me towards the end of a season.
Welcoming everyone. There's a comment that strikes me here. Shakespeare, well, good to see you. Hello, James. Is that the Merchant of Venice that he sees on your bookshelf?
Well,
revolved around a bet.
Do you know what, Shakespeare? No, it's not. But following on from your comment last show that I was on, where you very smartly noticed I had a new bookshelf but no books on it, I do have a Shakespeare Globe book here. Don't know if people can see that. Shakespeare's Globe guidebook, which I have to say, I didn't buy especially for you, Shakespeare. When I unpacked my books, most of which are football books, anybody wants to zoom. There was a Shakespeare book in among them, which I forgot I had. So I brought it out especially for you. So no Merchant of Venice, but if anybody would like to send me a copy, I'm always available for that.
Is that the Simon Holden betting guide I see on the bookshelf there?
It should be. It absolutely
should be on there. But anyway, welcome in Leslie Mack. ZT, good to see you. Ming Chung is got Spurs question mark there. We don't worry, we're going to get onto that very, very soon. Daniel Lucani, good to see you. Duncan, Rick Haley, Ginepi, Leon. I still think it could have been Leon's year, Ginepi in this tournament. I really do. Billy Franklin says, "Come on, United." Grazza is the dynamic duo, and Buelo Charles. And he's thinking maybe Spurs as well. And Duncan, I don't know. The Europa League anthem, I like the Europa League anthem. I actually think it's better than the new version of the Champions League anthem. That's my personal opinion of it. Ubermensch, good to see you as well. And yes, that Kevin De Bruyne miss yesterday killed a lot of people, sadly. And the Betcast, just as a reminder, that is at 2:30 Eastern time. Me, Nigel, and James are going to be live throughout the whole game. All the way to its conclusion. Hopefully, from our perspective, it goes to extra time and penalties, and then we're going to get overtime rates, aren't we, James?
Yes.
But there he is, Simon Holden. To speak of the man himself, good to see you, Simon, who absolutely smashed the PGA Championship with his picks, clean sweep over the weekend on the Because We Win socials. But yeah, without further ado, I think it's time to probably get involved with this Europa League final, James. And I mean, the first thing I will say, we've had a great run, actually. Europa League, Conference League, loads of winners. But probably from the quarterfinal stage onwards, maybe even before that with me, we haven't really been on side with either Spurs or Man United, have we?
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. Yeah.
I think there's been many doubting them. And I mean, just your general opinion, why do you think and how do you think they've managed to get this deep, really? Can you put a plausible explanation to it? Because throughout this run, they've been awful, really. Let's be brutally honest, domestically.
Yeah, it's very odd. Obviously, in the more recent weeks, that's been almost through choice, right? They've kind of abandoned the league and foregone it in order to focus on this. But it's a remarkable thing. You know, we've never had a European final where the two teams in it have been so poor in their domestic leagues. I've seen various things written in the European press this week saying, you know, imagine if it was the two teams in our domestic league that finished where Tottenham and Man United were. Playing in Europa League final, you know, you talk about teams like Le Havre and Angers in France League One. Imagine, so it's struggling. I think people around Europe to get their heads around this because they probably don't watch them that often in the Premier League, and they're wondering how they've got here. I've got to say, I've been quite impressed by both of them during the knockout phase of this competition. I can't understand why they've been as poor as they have in the league. I don't really get that. I don't think it's entirely down to the strength of the Premier League. Obviously, the strongest league, I say obviously, in Europe, in my opinion, in terms of depth. I don't think that completely explains how poorly they've played. But in the knockout phase of this competition, I think there have been things we've seen from both teams which have been excellent. If you just take the semi-finals, you know, nobody I spoke to saw Manchester United beating Athletic Club of Bilbao as convincingly as they did. I was on Bilbao in the outright market from 6 months ago. And the same thing, really, maybe to a slightly lesser degree, but the same thing with Tottenham against Bodo Glimt, which was a potential banana skin of a game. They handled it really, really well. So I think credit where credit's due. Both of them will feel they deserve to be here. I think, as I say, looking at how they've played in the knockout phase, they deserve to be here. It's just that discrepancy between what we've seen week in, week out, those of us who do follow the Premier League, and what we've seen in Europe, which is very weird. As I say, more recently, you can argue it's been a bit more through choice, but I think in a way, Steve, you know, it just makes it an even more fascinating final. You went with fascinating rather than fantastic, which I think is fair for the final. And I think that difference in quality between what we've been seeing in the league and what we've seen from them on their run to the final is just another factor which makes it fascinating tonight.
Sir Isaac Newton says Man United has not beaten Tottenham in the Premier League since 2022, but maybe on law of averages, they're due a win against them there, Sir Isaac Newton. But, I mean, this is interesting in terms of the futures handle here. 51% of the handle is on Man United, 35% on Spurs. Bilbao was made up 6%. Quite how much of that was staked after the semi-finals, I'm not sure. Yeah. But there has been people backing the two Premier League teams. Even in the comments on this show, I know we've had some people who have called the quarterfinals and semi-finals right. Most I think were like us and not necessarily opposing them, but not really wanting to get them on side. But now we get to this final, and they are the odds now. And Man United have been really backed in.
Yes.
I mean, if I'm just gone back actually, because I did Monday's live show with Lewis, and the odds then were Spurs plus 190, Man United were plus 148. It's now Manchester United plus 120 on the money line. This is in 90 minutes. The tie's at plus 235. That's my newsletter pick. I think the tie, and I still think the tie's got a great chance. Spurs are now out to plus 235 in the 90 minutes. To lift the trophy, those odds are actually incorrect on the graphic. I'll get you some latest ones there. Both teams score yes, minus 137, and no is plus 102. Let's talk about this 90-minute market first, James. And you got a pick for the game. I've got exactly the same pick, actually. I don't like it. I feel a bit uncomfortable with it, but I'm priced in here personally myself. And you are going with one particular side in the 90-minute market. Which way?
Yeah, I'm going with Tottenham, Steve. They've drifted there, and I don't understand it. Maybe some of the viewers can enlighten me. I see this as a 50-50 match. I think the league table would suggest it's a 50-50 match. I think their progress to the final, you can argue maybe United were a bit more impressive in the semis, but they got through by the skin of their teeth against Lyon in the quarterfinals. I make the runs of the two teams pretty much 50-50. And when I look at the two likely starting 11s tonight, I make it pretty much 50-50. I don't understand why Tottenham are so much bigger than United to win this in 90 minutes. So I'm not saying Tottenham will win it. I'm going on the price here. I think they're too big. I think the favoritism United have got is too strong. And so my 90-minute play would be to oppose United somehow, to back Tottenham somehow. So my pick on the game would be Tottenham on the Asian handicap. You can get Tottenham with a plus 0.25 goal on the Asian handicap, 0.25 goal start, that is, at minus 110. That would be my play on the game. That would be my main pick on the game. It would be to back Tottenham in that way. Obviously, with a plus quarter goal start on the Asian handicap, you're going to make a profit as long as Tottenham avoid defeat in 90 minutes. You could look at Tottenham and the tie on the double chance market. That's obviously going to be a lot shorter. I think it was about minus 148. If you're willing to go shorter, then obviously you've got both of those outcomes going to pay out fully for you. But the broad point I'm making here, Steve, and I think you feel the same on it, is that Tottenham look a little bit too short. Tottenham look a bit too big and United look a bit too short. So I've looked at it and tried to explain to myself, why are United so short? You can argue they've maybe got the single biggest potential match winner on the pitch in Bruno Fernandes. How much better is he than every other player on the pitch? How much likelier is he to turn the game? That's one case. Are they going to have better support in the stadium? We don't really know the answer to that. Yeah, maybe a little bit. But I think it's 50-50. I looked at it in many different ways. And when I came back to the prices, the match odds on the money line, I just think Tottenham are too big. So that's my overview on the game. Looking at the main market, I would rather be on Tottenham tonight than on Manchester United.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's exactly the same bet for me now. Spurs plus a quarter of a goal on the Asian handicap. I still do like that tie that I gave out on the newsletter pick, but the odds have changed now. I think the plus a quarter of a goal is the better bet. Now, this is a really difficult match to predict, and it's one of those instances where, for me, I'm not going on what I think is going to happen. I'm going on value on the odds, because my personal ranking of the two teams, I personally rate Manchester United slightly better, not by much, very slightly. In which case, they can't be plus 120 to win in 90 minutes. That would allude that they are quite a significantly better team, really, than Tottenham to lift the trophy minus 155. I would make Man United favourites to lift the trophy at, say, minus 120, maybe even a little bit longer than that. So I have to go where the value is, plus 0.25 in what is a very difficult match to predict. And I'm looking through the comments here, and it does seem pretty split 50-50, maybe a little bit more towards Spurs on the odds. But I can get your case in terms of where people are predicting. But in terms of the value, it's got to be on Spurs now. I mean, I know they're missing Maddison and Kulusevski, but someone's pointed out there Maddison can be very flaky on the day. When he's getting his darts right, he's right in the 180, isn't he? But he can easily fire into the treble one as well. And Kulusevski, I think he's a more important miss, actually, because he's more consistent. But that's not a bad looking 11. And crucially, that defence and midfield, which performed so well against Bodø/Glimt, is going to be playing.
Yeah, well, that's it. I think the point about Maddison and Kulusevski is an interesting one. Yeah, I didn't mention it just then, talking about why United clear favourites. Yeah, I suppose you can't underplay it in a way. I think Maddison and Kulusevski are two of the only three players at Tottenham who have got into double figures for assists this season. That's across all competitions. I think Kulusevski's got 11, Maddison's got 10. And the third player who has is Son, who I personally think will start, but obviously there's been a bit of a concern over his fitness. So you have to say Tottenham are going on the pitch with less creativity than they would like. Will it change the way they set up? It might do. I personally wonder if it might simplify things a little bit for Postecoglou. And will he go with a 4-4-2 and play two strikers? And might that end up being not beneficial, but they might just have to play that way and it works out. I don't know. They wouldn't choose to be without Kulusevski and Maddison. The question there on screen, which I think is fantastic, if they were available, would they be favourites? I think maybe they should be, if they were available. I certainly think that the prices we're looking at today would be different if they were available. So, that is one factor that you have to say is probably contributing to United being short favourites. But I've read really widely ahead of this game to see what views are out there. I saw something from the Opta supercomputer where they run these models before the game, and that came out as Tottenham having a 50.3 chance of winning the game, Manchester United having a 49.7 chance of winning the game. I agree with that. I think there's almost nothing to pick between these two sides, right? So like you're saying, Steve, I'm in exactly the same position as you. I'm not really saying who I think will win the game. I'm doing it on the basis of the prices being very different to where I think they should be. And even taking into account this factor with Maddison and Kulusevski being out, I still think Tottenham are too big to win the game in 90 minutes tonight.
Yeah, someone's mentioned Bergvall. I mean, I do believe this is a very high-class player in the making, and he has had some decent performances this season. Played well against Frankfurt, didn't he, to be fair? He has missed the last 5 games, but I do believe they've got enough there. Bissouma, when he's on his game, can be excellent. I think Udogie at left-back is a massive boost for Spurs. I think he's a baller, and he's missed a lot of the season through injury. He's not been at peak fitness. I think he's a huge player for them at left-back. No one ever talks about him at all. They talk about the centre-backs and Porro, but I think Udogie could be the actual key to the game here. I mean, there's a lot of talk about the referee. We'll talk about him a bit later, and I've got a feeling Nigel might have something to say about him on the live betcast later. It's Felix via the German ref. But, so for us, Spurs plus a quarter, that's the bet. That's the value bet heading into the game on the main money lines. What about some prop plays then? I've got an interesting prop angle, and you have as well, James. And we're kind of on a similar wavelength here. You are looking at Harry Maguire. I'm actually looking at Casemiro. I've got a feeling it's going to be similar reasoning.
Yeah, I am looking at Harry Maguire. So first thing to say about Maguire is we think he's going to start. We know that Bruno Amorim is going to use his back three. Who will it be in there? Maguire, Lenny Yoro. Will it be Lindelof? Will it be Shaw? So there's a bit of uncertainty, but I don't think there's any uncertainty about Maguire. I think he'll start. And I like him in the over 0.5 shots on target market. Now, that shot on target might be a header, right? Rather than a shot with his feet. But I think plus 290 on Maguire is a pretty good price. It's only a lean from me. It's not a pick. I'm not giving it the same weight as my play on Tottenham. But I think plus 290 is a pretty good price on a player who he scored twice in the competition. He obviously scored that crucial late header against Lyon as they went through. I think the first goal he got in the competition against Porto, I think he'll be a threat. And, when you look through the prices on Bet Rivers for overshots on target market, in the overshots on target market for United players, Maguire is one of the bigger prices. Now, he's obviously a defender, but if you think he's going to start and he's one of the 10 outfield players who will start, I think maybe his odds are the value pick among the United players, because plus 290 for a guy who has shown pretty good form in this competition and is likely to start. And we know about Maguire as well. He's not only experienced, but he does have a habit of actually doing pretty well in big games. We've seen that with England, haven't we, where he's had a lot of criticism down the years, but has actually turned up in some of the bigger matches. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a big performance from Maguire tonight, whatever the outcome. And over 0.5 shots on target at plus 290. So you're not looking for him to score here, just have a shot on target. for me was the value play in this market. I had a look through, obviously, all the other players. We think we know most of the guys who are going to start for United. He would be the one that I'd be focusing my attention on.
Yeah, I know someone who bets on the Premier League and stuff, who mentioned me about Maguire for this game, and I think he's even laddering his shots on target over 1.5 and 2.5. I think the over 2.5 shots on target for Maguire was something like 80 to 1. Yeah. I'm just interested. Bet Rivers are offering a good market here for this game. Player to score through a header, and Maguire is 16 to 1 to score from a header in this game, which might be an interesting player prop. And for Casemiro, 15 to 1 to score a header. This is another player I think is really good price for a shot on target. He's plus 165 for a shot on target, and plus 170 for over 1.5 just shots. He's had 7 shots on target in his last 8 games. He has had in both matches he's played against Spurs this season, he's had 2 shots. One of those was on target. And he's a big player who comes to the fore in these sort of huge games. He makes something happen. He's actually really good in the air. He finds space. I think it's more to do with his positioning skills rather than. But then again, he does have a good jump on him as well. And I think Spurs could be vulnerable to the likes of Maguire, the likes of Casemiro in this game. So that is my best player prop of the game. Well, it's 2, Casemiro for a shot on target and over 1.5 shots. Yeah. So I think United will target set pieces there. I think it's I really like Maguire's press conference. I think Simon Holden made a comment a little bit ago about how Man United seem to be more of a team. And I did feel that the Amorim, Fernandes, Maguire press conference was a lot more relaxed, under less pressure, whereas the Spurs press conferences were way more frantic. Feels like there is more pressure on Spurs.
Yeah, I think there's some really interesting chat around that. I don't tend to get too involved in the psychology of managers, to be honest, before games. But on this one, I found it really interesting. Saw some people saying, obviously, Postecoglou was quite prickly in his press conference, a little bit snappy. Yeah, I saw some people saying, he's maybe gone kind of so far down that road this season, quite authentically, because I think he has been annoyed by some of the questions he's faced, that maybe now he's actually, playing on it a little bit, trying to create that siege mentality within the camp, because that's potentially what he sees as the best way to approach the game. I don't know if that's true or whether he was genuinely annoyed by 1 or 2 of the questions he faced yesterday, but it could be that he's actually thinking, do you know what, that's where I kind of have found myself, and I should maybe see this through to the end now and continue to be a bit prickly, and then get the players thinking that everybody is against Tottenham. It could be that. I completely agree with you, Steve. I thought the United press conference was extremely revealing. They were super relaxed. It all looked very authentic, didn't it? The exchanges between Bruno Fernandes and his manager. It gave you a sense of, a little bit of a sense of how Amorim is viewed within the camp, a guy they respect, but also a guy they can approach and talk to. Does that mean United are a little bit more relaxed going into it? I think they might be. And I think the way that they won that semi-final, will have definitely given them confidence to go into this game and think, we know how to play here, and we know how to play in this competition. So maybe gives them a little bit of an edge. I don't know, but very different approaches, and I think we'll see maybe early on in the game tonight whether it's something that's fed through to the players. Just picking up very quickly before, in case either of us forget, I saw the question there about Solanke. Is he value on the headed shots on target? I don't know would be my answer to that. I've not really looked into any stats on headed shots on goal. So I'm not sure. What I would say is I would not be surprised at all if he is the main danger man for Tottenham, because I think he's done very well in this competition, and I think he'll be a threat generally in the game.
Well, one thing I do know is that Dominic Solanke scored in his last 4 games against Man United, so yes. He will absolutely. I can see why Fox is thinking about that, and I've not actually looked at the headed stats, to be fair. Maybe I can do that before the betcast later. And we will have some more angles with the betcast later, because we know what the starting lineups are going to be.
Yes.
And as a reminder for that betcast, 2:30 Eastern time, that's 7:30 in the UK, there's also going to be some prizes given out. There's going to be some Bet Rivers merch on offer, including this beast here that I'm wearing. I do believe could be one of the things up for grabs. But there's T-shirts, polos, quarter zips, all sorts of things up for grabs on that betcast for people who are in the chat. So we look forward to seeing you later on that. Some breakdown then on the betting breakdowns for the game. 74% of the money on the money line is on Man United, with 68% of the tickets. Over-under money, 62% of money is on the over. We didn't even talk about over-under. I mean, for me, I would actually lean under here, but
yes,
under 2.5 goals, minus 122 would be a slight lean for me, James. But there is more money on the over, slightly more.
I'm the same I'm the same as you, Steve. I tend to move towards it. I think there's a lot of speculation about what impact does it have in a big European final when the two teams are from the same country. They know each other obviously so well. I can think back to a couple of times Italian teams played. Was it 2003? The Milan Juventus European Champions League final was a 0-0. We've got a very small sample size. So for people who are maybe wondering, this is the 6th all-English final in a major European competition. You can kind of write one of them off because it was back in the 70s where it was a 2-legged affair. So it doesn't really fit any sort of model you might look at. But there have been 4 all-English European finals in the last couple of decades. 3 of those have gone unders. Now, very small sample size, but obviously 2 of them are the most recent 2 in the Champions League, which was Man City Chelsea, which Chelsea won 1-0 in 2021, and Liverpool's 2-0 win over Tottenham in 2019. If you just look at those 2 games, people might remember watching them. They weren't great watches, were they? They were fairly cagey affairs. The Man City Chelsea game, Man City couldn't really get going the way they would like, and the Liverpool win over Spurs in the Champions League final in 2019, you had that Liverpool goal right at the start and the Liverpool goal right at the end, and Tottenham really didn't get going in between. So, listen, who knows? But I think the feeling generally is that when 2 teams know each other really well and they meet in a European final, it tends, if nothing else, to lead to them sort of cancelling each other out rather than going at each other. So I would tend to agree with you on that, Steve. Of the 2, if I had to, I would go on unders.
If in doubt for a major final, always go under rather than over. That is the rule in my textbook. As the FA Cup kind of final proved at the weekend, kind of thing. One thing I will say, I know the last head-to-head meeting, Spurs have won all the 3 head-to-head meetings, like you said earlier, James. The 1-0 was crazy for chances. It should have been more goals in it, but finals things can radically change. There has been, the significant wagers so far. There's been nearly 5,000 on Tottenham on the money line at plus 205. Equally 2,000 on Man United money line plus 135. And I'm sure some big bets will come in as kickoff approaches. The biggest player prop so far is nearly $1,000 on Garnacho over 0.5 shots on target at minus 128 for those who are interested there. But yeah, the referee. I suppose we've got to talk about the referee. A few people mentioning this. It's Felix Weyer, isn't it? The German ref, controversial appointment. The match fixing thing that happened years and years ago. That's completely irrelevant to me. What is more relevant is he does generally like to give cards out, but we've got a high card line with Bet Rivers. It's 5.5, I do believe, for this game. You can bet on over 4.5 cards at significantly minus money. For those who can access that market, of course, minus 200 for over 4.5 cards. That seems very short. I know it is a final. I know this referee dishes, but it's minus money, minus 103 for over 5.5 cards, James. Is it really going to be that much of a bloodbath? I feel those lines are set pretty fair, actually.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking it would be. I think both teams are going to try and focus on playing their own games. I don't think there's any particular needle or tension or levels of aggression between these two sides. So I don't know. I don't tend to look at referees, as you know, Steve. You've got an amazing knowledge of referees going into games. I hadn't considered the cards a particularly interesting market here because I think that both teams, as I say, are just going to try and impose themselves on the other with the ball, actually. Not to say there's not different ways they might play it, but I just don't see a lot of aggression on the two potential starting lineups. I know there can be a little bit here and there from players like Casemiro if they need it, but yeah, I didn't see it being a high card game or anything like that. I could, as I say, it's not my area of specialism, but not particularly expecting an aggressive match tonight.
He gave 6 cards in the PSG Arsenal second leg. Felix Weyer. He's actually warmed up for the final with a cardless game. St. Pauli Bochum on the last game of the season in the Bundesliga. Whether that's the calm before the storm, not exactly sure, but we'll have to wait and see. Neil F is thinking of going no goal scorer. But can you trust these defenses? Mostly throughout the season, you've not been able to trust them, but in a final, things can get very tight and cagey, and they have defended well. Especially Spurs have defended quite well, actually, in the run to the final, I would say.
Yeah, they have. It's a good point there from Duncan on screen at the moment. It's hard to beat the same team 4 times in a row in one season, because we've said Tottenham have 3 out of 3 wins over United at the moment. I think I saw stats saying United haven't lost 4 times in a season to the same team since Everton in 1985-86 season, when Everton were obviously a really top side. That really, if anything, Steve, gives weight to your pick on the tie, I think, because it's a good point Duncan makes. It is very difficult to be that dominant over one side, law of averages, or the team who've lost 3 just being even more motivated or working out maybe what they've been doing wrong. So, yeah, it's a fair point. There's so many factors you can take into account here. But if anything, that would make me lean towards the draw, really, the tie, rather than backing United to win it.
I agree with Duncan as well about Ange Postecoglou. I think this could be his last match for the club. If they don't win this trophy tonight, I could see him either walking or Daniel Levy sacking him on the spot. And if they win the trophy, I think Ange might just say to everyone, there you go, mates. There's your trophy. I'm off. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So I definitely could see it being his. I mean, all right, there's one more Premier League game, but it wouldn't even stun me if he walked before then for whatever reason. So It feels like do or die for Ange and Spurs, doesn't it? That's the difference I felt from the press conferences.
Yes.
United more like Amorim, they know he's going to have another season at the club.
Yeah.
He's going to be given the whole window. This is Ange's second season at the club. It feels like the pressure's on him. It depends on your angle. Sometimes the more relaxed team can deliver the better performance. But if your whole life depends on it, your job's depending on it, that can be the difference maker as well. It's a really split opinion sort of thing. And all I can say is best of luck, whatever you are taking on that. And we'll be back later with a live betcast, 2:30 Eastern time, 7:30 in the UK. Me, James, and Nigel Seeley is going to join us as well, so you can pick Nigel's brains about the game later on. There is a couple more games we are going to talk about on Betting Weekly Live before we go. We've got a French Ligue 1 relegation playoff match and a couple of Norwegian Cup games. Now, to actually access this match, Metz against Reims in France, it's listed under League 2. So it's a bit disrespectful for Reims. They're not relegated yet. But in the Bet Rivers market, it is in Ligue 2. And FC Metz are plus 110 favourites to win the game. The ties at plus 230. Stade de Reims are also plus 230, actually. Weird odds there, I must say. And over 2.5 goals is at evens. What a week coming up for Stade de Reims in France. They've got sandwiched in between this game a French Cup final against PSG. I think we might be have slightly opposing views on this game, James. I think Reims are going to get relegated.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. But in terms of this first leg, there isn't a futures market to go down, I don't think. Where is your betting? Well, you've got a couple of leans for the first leg, haven't you, for us?
Yeah, I have. So I'm not sure about this game. I think it's a really tough one to call, but similar to my view on the Europa League final, I think Metz are too short here. And I'll explain why. They're obviously clear favourites to win the game in 90 minutes tonight. This is the first leg of a 2-legged playoff. The winner will end up in League 1. If it's Metz, that's promoted to League 1. If it's Reims, that's staying in League 1. I think Metz are too short for a couple of reasons. The first is not that impressive for me in finishing the season at home. This is playing in League 2. I think they struggled to win their last couple of games at home in League 2. Second reason is they've just had a home game in the playoffs. So the way the playoffs work in France in League 1 and League 2, there's a semi-final for the League 2 teams, which Metz have won, and they're through to the final now. In that semi-final, which was one-legged, they got home advantage because they finished higher in the regular league season. They won 1-0 at home to Dunkirk, but they didn't play particularly well in that game. They needed an own goal to win it 1-0 with almost the last kick of the game. So I've got a few reservations about Metz going into it. And I think that there's not enough for me in terms of their form generally or at home to justify their really short odds to win on the night tonight. On Reims, I have to say, it's very difficult to make a strong case for them, is my view. The scheduling of this playoff could not be worse. This was supposed to be one of the greatest weeks in their recent history, preparing for their appearance in the French Cup final, which is still happening. on Saturday. First time in more than 4 decades, I think, that Reims had been there. They're playing PSG at the Stade de France. What a fantastic occasion. It's been completely overshadowed now by the fact that they've landed in the relegation playoff position in Ligue 1 and are having to play this playoff to save themselves with the 2 legs either side of that French Cup final. A really disastrous outcome for them. Really difficult, I think, also for the players and the staff as well to get their heads around the fact they're in the playoff, because it was a big surprise. They've only landed in this position because they lost their last 2 League One games of the season, and also because Le Havre, who were favourites to end up in the relegation playoff position almost till the last kick of the season, scored a penalty in the 99th minute on the final day. So I think Reims have got a real psychological shock in the last week. Will they be able to pick themselves up and be competitive straight away for this first-legged playoff when they thought they were going to be prepping here for the French Cup final with their League One position safe? I'm not sure. So I think it's a massive ask for Reims to be up for it tonight. But I do think they've got a few attacking weapons that can cause trouble for Metz. So it's just on the price for me. I think Metz are a little bit too short at home as the League Two side. My lean on the game would therefore be Reims or tie at minus 148. So you're going to make a profit there if Reims avoid defeat. My second lean on the game is over 2.5 goals at plus 100. Remarkably, the final 10 Metz league games of the regular league season all went over 2.5 goals. Their playoff didn't against Dunkirk, but their final 10 league games did, and I think they averaged 4.4 goals a game. So plenty of evidence that Metz are going to struggle defensively tonight, but they can be dangerous going forward. I think Reims personally will play on that. I think they'll try and get themselves in a good position in the tie by attacking and scoring tonight. So I think goals as well, but that's my view on the game, Steve. It's really more about the price than it is any real faith in Reims.
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed that Metz are only plus 110 here, because if they were bigger, I would absolutely take them draw no bet. I think Reims are in trouble over the 2 legs. But, I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? You watch this Stade de Reims side, Samba Diawara's come in, and I don't really think he's done a good job with them. 5-4-1 system. They failed to score in, I think, 10 out of 14 games that he's managed in Ligue, but they're not playing a top division side here. They are facing a second division opponent. So I do wonder. I think both teams score, yes, at minus 134. I've gone back my history. This playoff has actually been really evenly split over the 6 years that they've done it. 3 times the Ligue 2 side have got promoted, and 3 times the Ligue 1 side have stayed in the division. 5 of the first 6 legs have been both teams to score, yes. So there's a history in the first leg of goals. Yeah. Several overs as well. I think 4 out of 6 overs. So that over 2.5, I like that as well. I mean, you might look at Stade de Reims matches and think, wow, that doesn't point to goals. It's a completely different game against. This is like facing, this not Montpellier. I was going to say Montpellier. They have been really bad, but it's a team worse than them on paper. Yeah. So I do think it could open up. I like both teams score. Yes, I really like Metz in the second leg. They've got the best away record in Ligue 2. They
do, yes. I think that's really interesting. I think the point you're making there about the goals in the first leg, and I think Reims, personally, I think the best way they can try and pick themselves up from this massive disappointment of landing in the relegation playoff is to have a real go here. They may or may not be aware of those stats, but they will be aware that Metz are dangerous away from home, and they will be aware that Metz have been conceding lots of goals in their last 10 League 2 games. So I think Reims should have a real go here. Very few player props markets available on this game on Bet Rivers, but if you find them anywhere or you're looking out for them maybe closer to kickoff, have a look at the 2 Japan international wingers that play for Reims. They generally have Ito and Nakamura on the 2 wings. Both at various times have been good this season. Nakamura coming in from the left has been the better of the 2 in terms of finishing. But I think players of that quality, they should be really relishing this opportunity to have a go at a Metz team who have been pretty good, you've got to say, but who have conceded goals. So those stats really underpin what I was thinking. If I was in charge of Reims, I'd be telling them to go out and have a go here, because you don't really want to be going into that second leg having given Metz a chance to get their tails up. That would be my view. And that's why I think Reims really, if they go too cautious tonight and try and play to keep it too tight and end up losing 1-0 or something. I personally would think they've only got themselves to blame. I think that would be the wrong approach.
Yeah, and this match starts at 2 p.m. Eastern time. I just know you're going to get bombarded with questions about this game live on air, James. Forget Europa League. People will be asking your in-play opinion on Metz Reims, which you can watch live on the BetRivers app. This match is available there and on the website too. I think you could definitely look towards goals. I like both teams score. Yes, I do agree the price on Rams is too big, but I am wary of them. But I think they can. Yeah. They really need a performance in this match. They really do. And let's see if they can deliver. Sheikh, Sabali and Gautier Ain would be on my shortlist for Metz players. They've had a good season. League 2 bullies, basically. Too good for the second tier, but in the top division, they're just a little... Sabali especially. Flaky in the top division. There's a couple of Norwegian Cup games as well in action. We've got Lillestrom against Fredrikstad and Molde against Kristiansund. And for me, the best bet here, these matches start at 1 p.m. Eastern time, is the under 2.5 goals. Lillestrom Fredrikstad at -109. Fredrikstad are going to come on people's radars as the summer develops. They are in the Europa League qualifying. I think there's a live chance they could actually make the Conference League groups eventually, James. They are a very, very defensive team. They have... There'll probably be a back five here, and they don't concede many goals. Now, Lillestrom are in the second tier. They're far too good for the second tier. They're a top tier club in all but name. Both teams will really have they want to win this match, but Fredrikstad just play one way, and it's really defensive, and it's really unusual for Norwegian standards, actually. They're so unique in that way. They've got their best players are basically at the back, and the goalkeeper's the best goalkeeper in Norway. In my opinion. So under 2.5 goals is, I think, the best play in that. And then Molde Kristiansund. The only thing I'll say here is I could not ever suggest anyone bet on Molde today at nearly -300. They are a shadow of what they once were. These two sides just met recently in the league, and Kristiansund won 1-0 at a massive price. I think they were 7-1 to win the match in the league, and there's +650 here. I'm not saying to get on the +650 because for the cup they might just rotate around a lot. But there's no way I could back Molde with monopoly money right now at those odds. So be very careful. You might look at that and think easy winner, add it to a parlay. No, not for me. Kristiansund for anyone who wants a really bit of pizza money, maybe on the draw double chance, not on the nose. But yeah, we will be back later, basically, James. And what is your best bet then today? What would it be?
Yeah, my best bet would be on Tottenham plus 0.25 on the Asian handicap. -110. What I said earlier, I think Tottenham are the side to be with. I would find a way to do that. That would be my pick of the day.
I think that's the best value pick of the day. I mean, it sounds uncomfortable, but Spurs plus a quarter of a goal. My best bet would be that Norwegian Cup under in Lillestrom Fredrikstad under 2.5 goals, but we will wait and see how it goes. Please do join us later on the Betcast at 2:30 Eastern time. Nigel's going to be joining the party as well. Quizzes on anything. It's going to be a great chance for viewer interaction. We're going to be watching the game live, in-play betting, but also, talking betting strategies, things like that. I'm sure Nigel will have a good story or two, and we can all have a lot of fun. So, we really do look forward to that. Thanks very much, James. It's been a pleasure doing the Europa League run with you.
Yes.
And we will see you all later on Betting Weekly Live. Remember, Tennis Live is coming up in an hour and 15 minutes' time, and the hardball and fast break are still scheduled for later as well. So remember to gamble responsibly. Place those winning tickets now, and we'll cash them later. See you all later in the evening in about 3.5 hours time. So take care.